All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and welcome to the CIECAst. This is Fred Iantorno. Thank you for joining us today. We have a great program, Defining the Inventory Record 2015 style. Today's presenter is Ginny Whalen. She is a longtime automotive recycle industry leader. She was the first woman president of the Automotive Recyclers Association, is an international educator, and currently executive director of the ARA Educational Foundation. She is the founder and president of the ARA University. Ginny is a business consultant. She is the first liaison from ARA to CIECA. She's a member of the CIECA Education Committee and chair of the CIECA Recycled Parts and Inventory Committee. Please join me in welcoming Ginny Whalen. Ginny?
Thank you very much, Fred, and thank you all for joining us. We're going to step forward here today with a look at one aspect of the massive work that we do from the Recycled Parts and Inventory Committee of CIECA. For those that are familiar with and those that may not, the inventory record is an open field that appears in our systems, and it may be diverse management systems, that has been pretty much a free text field with limited characters and a manual input. In its infancy, this seemed to work really well for recyclers to add additional information about the part or parts that they are describing in their inventory record. But as we step forward today, and as is shown on the screen, we have systems that do not have standards for the inventory record. And because no standard exists with each vendor as its own set fields and field length, it makes it very hard for the consistency in the recycler's data. And it also makes it harder to transmit recycler data electronically, which is our main focus through our committee in advancing procurement of recycled parts. So we asked the CIECA in a proposal to an addendum to our committee work to take a look at this and see if we could encompass some standards in codes and in actual digital standards that would help this streamline this effect. Next slide, please, Charlie. Excuse me, Fred. What happened as we stepped this way in the inventory record is that it was clear to us as we moved through that inventory record would have to encompass things that were already codes and built. So we had the damaged codes that were a standard in our messaging that we had built previously. We also had grading. We looked at and realized that we had a need for, in particular with the sheet metal parts, the color and color type codes. And also a new and emerging area was part material. This would address, obviously, the design of like the new Ford F-350 all aluminum bodies and those types of materials that would definitely need to be conveyed as we shifted to inventory, our inventory across procurement. We then were stepping into this in a more detailed way at looking at what we already had in place in our messages and codes, and realized that there was many things that we had in place. We just needed to define them to address this particular focus. As we did that, it was a request from members of the committee that we take a look at recalled parts. It was a decision as we split between the data, the need to store this information in the inventory system. It's needless to say, as we are quite aware since they are in the headlines and have been for a number of months, that there is a definite explosion of recalls. Recently from a NHTSA chief, it was said that there were 60 million recalls in 2014 alone, and that there is a probability that this will increase in 2015. That means that there are many parts that are hitting our recycled parts inventories that would perhaps appear in a recall status that we have no knowledge of. So we, as a committee, invited others to participate in a full exposure to this issue and stepped it forward to look at this and how this would impact. Next slide, please, Fred. The inventory information included in the procurement message, it would be on, it would be on a part level. So the information recorded that is in the recall part as an indicator is one data need. So we actually addressed and built a lengthy list of questions that we had, and then defined some that we would have to focus on as we step this. Database should go back at least 11 to 12 years, and in alignment to what would be the vehicles that would be looked at and the recalls that would be stepped back that way. There was no one single source for this currently, and meaning that each OE had their recall database. They provided it in direct relationship to the owners of their particular models, and the way they the only body that was overseeing their particular database was the government itself. And NHTSA, and I believe there's a typo there, but NHTSA is attempting and has actually put together a database that would work with regards to to being able to define a recall vehicle, but it was a single VIN related website. It's safercar.gov that came together from the NHTSA side, and that we took a more in-depth look at just to see how that could integrate with our platform as we built the codes going forward. Next slide, please, Fred. The data points for the inventory system and the quote and sale message were key to this. So in other words, we had already built these kinds of information systems, whether they're on a quote side or a sales side, and that would pertain to the vehicle that was in recall, and was the vehicle impacted. And then if you'll note that I placed in blue, is there a fix for the recall? If not, what would they predict when would they predict it would be available? So this is again our way of defining with questions. Notice there's a lot of questions here, and we're looking for the answers that we can create to streamline this and particularly make recyclers and those using our recycle parts aware of the process that we put in place. So we're looking at the recall, when it happens, is there a fix? If we know about the fix, then we can indicate that the part has been fixed. Was the recall situation corrected? When it is corrected, what is the validation number? So we can't just we have to align this totally to the actions of the OE and their recall system. Was it a safety recall? As we discussed this as a committee, we were looking at federal safety recalls, the larger, because we are all aware as we repair and work on vehicles, there are many different recalls that take place within a particular vehicle model that may not necessitate total safety recalls. So we're really addressing those which touch upon those components in a larger sense. When was the database last checked? So this aligns to the availability of creating this database and the ability to how accurate it is. Anyone who has received a recall notice knows that you can receive one for one particular part on your model, and then within a couple of days you may also be made aware of another recall for a different part. So this is a very has to be a viable database that we're looking at to replenish the information. Is there a replacement OE number? When we get into the discussion on the recycle part side, we are aware that many of us utilize the Hollander number system on our parts, but it is critical at this point in the recall process that we are totally aligned to the OE numbers, because that is the way this database is being communicated. And then, of course, we ask the question is, was a new Hollander number given? And Hollander utilizes the OE numbers, and so this was another question we have. What is the recall number and the recall date? This would all have to be in the quote aspect of information. So what we're asking here is just not a question. We're asking a field line item for our actual sales messages and also for our quote messages. And next slide, please. What we're looking at here is the overview of how we integrate the information that we just took a look at, whether it's in the inventory record field or it is integration of the part recall numbers. And so we have here that the benefits of what standard integration provides, and it's quite obvious that it would reduce the required efforts. It's easily implemented and improves delivery time over custom solutions. It's more cost-effective, and it provides a foundation to share data, which is critical as we move this information, and provides an infrastructure for future integration. So why would CIECA step this way with the recycle parts and inventory and drill down to these areas? It's probably one of the 6 boxes I just referred are impeded by us not doing it. So that's what's critical about utilizing CIECA that way. Next slide, please, Fred. The Recycle Parts and Inventory Committee has been in its inception working on many things and has a list of accomplishments, so I just kind of wanted to share this. There's a dedicated group that is part of this committee representing multiple industries, which is always an excellent platform, including management systems, recyclers, individuals that are from the collision side and salvage side that step onto these committees and on a weekly basis and give their expertise. So we have a charter, we have a business plan, we have a workflow, we have the messages, a suite of messages, and we have code tables. As I referenced earlier when we were looking at the inventory record, we're looking at a kind of alignment of our code tables into that particular field area. So if we have and do have the code tables for particular for color and part type code color, then it can integrate into this into what we've already established. Next slide, please, Fred. Along with this, we have the flow of the messages, messages ID'd with procurement documents, and an implementation guide, so that everyone understands CIECA has and continues to offer this book of work to those that are stepping in, those that are members, and those that are stepping to use this in their particular product design. So we're in our way, we're integrating into multiple vendor products with a standard of flow of messages. This also helps companies and individuals that are stepping with companies into setting up procurement models that would have these standards in there. So it's almost the expression you don't have to reinvent the wheel when it comes to establishing for recycled parts and inventory a flow of messages or procurement. The next slide, please, Fred. We have, again, and these are all available to be viewed on the CIECA website, all of the book of work. As you become involved in a committee or a member of CIECA, you could go right in and take a look at the mission, the scope, and the impacted parties. When we reference impacted parties, this is the realization is that the recycled parts and inventory does not sit alone. It has to be utilized. So the impacted parties will be obviously the consumer, the collision and mechanical repairers, the management systems, and all of those that are pretty much procuring recycled parts through different platforms. For the end result, for the recycler, the main focus is the growth of recycled parts in the marketplace as a viable repair product. That in a recent, I think it was probably last week, in a Mitchell Trends report, showed a number at 13.7, which was quite, has been a growing increase of utilization of recycled parts, which is kind of exciting to all of us who are in the industry, but a ways to go because the dominant number obviously is the utilization of OE parts that is always clearly defined as the largest contributor parts. Next slide, please, Rick. Recycled parts and inventory, we have this business plan that we referenced and we discussed briefly, the impacted parties, the business flow. What are the deliverables? And again, as we look at it, we clearly defined, and we're at a lengthy book of work that this committee had done, and pretty much in the CIECA model, after you complete the proposed projects, you kind of go into a maintenance mode, and we were stepping that way until, by the leadership of actually the chair of the ARA e-commerce committee, Neil Niesenbaum, the recommendation that we look at inventory record in a more detailed way because of the obstacles that were being placed and restrictions of information that were happening in that particular field. So you can see that the deliverables are defined, but then there's the opportunity to stay aligned with the growth of this. And then we also have to look at the whole product, which is the salvage benefits, meaning that we secure our inventory is through purchase of total loss vehicles, salvage, and other sources of end-of-life vehicles. And so when we're defining how we move these quality parts that we, through our data fields into the marketplace, we have to look at how that will value through our inventory sources. So, next slide, please, Fred. I lost Fred. I put him to sleep probably. We have in this the workflows, the documents, and messages and descriptions, and message names. Sounds like a lot of detail too, and that's exactly what it is. But the overall descriptions of messages and the message names will become critical to how the part is identified and moves through multiple sources. Perhaps as we sit now, we're so aware of how many products, how many parts are being procured or moved electronically. Full procurement for the recycled part has not yet been totally achieved, but with the work of CIECA, some of the obstacles have been diminished a great deal, and the goal is that when I say total electronic procurement, that means that there is no manual steps, that from the point of entry as the first manual, that this moves through clearly. The Recycled Parts and Inventory Implementation Guide, clearly much defines all of this that I've referenced with the messages, and so in full knowledge of that, we are able to utilize that as the litmus to step more messages into that section. Next slide, please, Fred. We do focus on the general discussions of these kinds of things, and that's where the new issue of the inventory record and the even newer issue of recalls is kind of born out of these discussions. Then there is the realistic concerns, how they impact. Obviously, we are sensitive to recall information as it pertains to movement for our availabilities to know. One of the largest obstacles, as I indicated earlier, was that we do not have full integration of all OE numbers for all parts from manufacturers. So as we step this, we're trying to build stronger dialogues and connections with OE to secure that information. And you can go to the next slide, please, Fred. So as we look at the inventory record and we review the procurement requirements and requests for messages, we build aggregates to use these. And as I said, when we were looking at the information that was discussed, recall information and procurement and inventory messaging, that we have lots of indicators that it would be a multiple data flow. So it's right now in the marketplace, defining a recall is really just knowing your VIN, placing your VIN into a database that is backfilled by the OE, but it's for a single VIN. So obviously from the recycler standpoint, we would be inputting many VINs on a given day to verify different parts and their positioning if they are in a recall or not. So, pretty much CIECA helps us through this committee to define these questions and then to look for sources. Who has the answers to these? It's great. We got a lot of questions. Who has the answers? We are obviously looking to the federal government as it built the initial database and dialogue, but they have clearly just pointed us back to that database and said, you can use that. But, for us, it doesn't make sense to the access. How is this access? Is there an API to access the source? And that's one of our questions. What we hope to achieve in working through this is that as we fully explore and answer a lot of these questions and build to the two messaging areas, whether it's in the quote or in the actual sale of the part, that we will then be able to call together the dominant management systems that supply our industry, the recycled parts industry, and just sit with them. Although they are represented, their technical people are represented on the committee of recycled parts and inventory. We really want to step this in a unique fashion, really a more urgent fashion, to address and solve this problem. Some of the, those inventory management systems already have certain things in place, but I think this would be a great way and the role of defining why we step this hard and fast on certain topics when it comes to messaging, is that if we have the roadmap, then we can sit down and say, how can you implement this roadmap through your systems? Or if they have other ways that we haven't seen, that will contribute them, which has been the case as we work this. So there's a lot of energy going into this right now, a lot of focus, and so the other thing is the ID, critical ID of OE recalls itself. It's not every recall, as I said, will be a federal safety recall, so we have to kind of screen through and see what we are really asking for and what we need, and then how to define it. And then many of these items that that we're kind of aware by the focus right now, whether it's the ignition switches or airbags, they have dominated because of the implications and exposure. I know in 2014, at the time of one article that I was reading, there was basically over 27,000 different vehicle owners had, on the onset of the launch of that site, stepped in to utilize it. So this is reaching far. It also has implications that we have to address when we're building code, that it was a realization in one of the areas that there was more impacting in certain climates to that particular part, which led to another dynamic that we really hadn't been addressing, is safety recall. Is it implemented, or is it in connection with exposure in a certain area? So there's a lot of unanswered to this as we step it, but from the standpoint of codes and records and sending messages, we can put this structure in place for the possibility that that we can step it when total access is given to us. In other words, if OEs then begin to proceed to give us a resource to connect this, we have through CIECA and this committee built the bridge, and that in its reality is probably a very exciting thing to have happen, because we utilize that word all the time, the gap, closing the gap, building the bridge, in reference to our parts from the estimate to the sale. And here is another way for our industry to step in and totally step forward in this particular focus. Next slide, please, Fred. I just wanted to conclude with, obviously an invitation to those that are interested. I know that CIECA does a great job of inviting over and over again, but we as a committee do meet on Tuesday. In fact, when I catch a breath after this one, we will be meeting today, 2 o'clock Eastern Time. And we welcome participation, because that allows for us to fully discuss in an open forum that is focused, obviously, with exception to any antitrust areas, that we can bring together ideas to help us to define and write these codes. Fred, at this time, I think I want to turn that over to you. And
okay, well, thank you very much, Jenny, for sharing your knowledge and expertise with us. Okay, we've got an exciting lineup for the rest of the year for the CIECAsts. The next one will be on March 17th, which is actually a very good one, on how to move forward when the CIECA standard does not currently exist. April 21st will be the value of reusable code, and we'll actually get some examples, some statistics from a developer. On May 19th, we'll talk about what is going on in the architecture committee. They're working diligently to develop, and we'll be talking about the progress on the schema conversion from XML to JSON. A little bit more of a technical presentation, but yet a very worthwhile one. in June 16th, Dan Webster will present the Business Message Suite release package, what's new within it. On July 21st, we'll be talking about glass messages within the collision industry. On August 18th, pretty exciting new technology for the first notice of loss will be introduced. On October 20th, we'll go look inside the CIECA committees, what's going on with each individual one of them. And we'll round off our offering for 2015 by what's new within the 2015 R2 Business Message Suite release package. So keep those dates in mind. They're also on the website, and the sign-up is also on the website. Next, we'd like to invite you to our 7th annual Symposium in Tampa, Florida, on September 14th through the 16th. Again, we will start off with the happy hours, light networking on Monday night from 6 to 8. Tuesday night, we'll have our grand reception. There'll be an excellent time for networking opportunities. We'll again have 2 tracks of sessions, business and technical, and there will be something for everyone. We've got a business view of data security, latest trends in automotive recycling. Usually the hit of the program is Microsoft Evangelist. Will be talking about future trends in computing. We'll have an MSO's view of the CIECA standards and how they're used. We'll also be talking about technology trends in JSON and schema guidelines. So there's an opportunity for everyone, both on the business side and the technical side. And we'll have a complete agenda for you when registration opens in late April. Again, we hope you'll attend. All right, the partnership, and I want to make one last comment. The partnership between ARA and CIECA has been a very productive one and has been beneficial to both organizations and to the individual association's members. Both CIECA and the ARA invite you to join us and be part of this action. Please consider joining either or both organizations if you aren't already a member. Membership information is located on their respective websites, which are down at the bottom of this. That concludes today's CIECAcast. Thank you for joining us, and have a great day. Bye now.